Good afternoon, Seawolves, and welcome to this week's installment of Eyewitness News. I'm Sam Madling-Bayan. Let's get into today's top stories. The U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has entered its second day, but some Iranian and Chinese ships have been able to go through. For more on the U.S.-Iran conflict, we have Sky here, reporting on the latest. Sky?
Yeah, thanks. So President Donald Trump says that more talks between the United States and Israel are going to begin in Pakistan over the next 2 days. Now, this is notable because it comes as marathon talks that took place over the weekend failed to reach any sort of peace agreement between the two countries. Take a listen.
I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
Okay, now a big sticking point is that Washington wants to take control of the Strait of Hormuz. And for those that don't know, it's an important passageway that commodities like oil and fertilizer pass through every day, at least before the war.
What has the impact been on global energy markets?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Roughly 30% of the world's oil passes through the strait. And global energy markets are continuing to feel that effect that began when this war first broke out a few weeks ago. So crude oil is at roughly $95 a barrel right now. Gas prices here in the United States are averaging just over $4. So consumers are definitely feeling the squeeze, and there's no obvious end in sight.
Sky, one of the key negotiation points for Iran is a Hezbollah and Israel ceasefire. What is the latest?
Yeah, so Lebanon and Israel are meeting in Washington right now for the first diplomatic talks between the two nations since 1993, decades ago. They're basically aiming to end fighting between Israel and Iran's proxy group in Lebanon, Hezbollah. So some high-stakes negotiations going on there as well.
Thank you, Sky.
I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support.
Although his post has now been deleted from his social media account, but overnight the president launched new verbal attacks on the Pope, who's been critical of the war.
We don't like a Pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a Pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person.
It all comes after Pope Leo's clear opposition to the war in Iran throughout recent weeks, including his Easter message talking about unjustified civilian deaths. On a flight to Africa, Pope Leo was asked for his response to the president's post and insults.
The Trump administration are speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. I do not look at my role as being politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him.
To Capitol Hill now, Democrat Eric Swalwell is out of Congress after a cascade of sexual misconduct allegations. Later today, one of those women is expected to speak out in press. Maddie Pujols is joining us now with more.
The House is back in session with a dramatic first day. One congressman announced he was resigning, another announcing plans to retire. Congressman Eric Swalwell, who is considered a star in the Democratic Party, walking away from the job just the day before the 45-year-old withdrew his hat from the California governor's race as one of the leading Democrats. Swalwell shared this message online, writing, "I'm deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in my judgment I've made in the past. I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I take responsibility and ownerships for the mistakes I did make. It's also wrong for my constituents to have distracted me from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress." Swalwell faces allegations of sexual misconduct from a former staffer who told CNN that he sexually assaulted her twice, once in 2019 and again in 2024.
Eric Swalwell needs to resign. The allegations are too serious and too credible.
Look, people who are in positions of power and authority over others need to be held accountable.
The Manhattan District Attorney is investigating the incident. Many of Swalwell's Democratic colleagues had called on him to step down. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Maddie. And now we have Nikola Knezovic with sports.
After a long regular season, the NBA playoffs are finally here, and the intensity is only going to ramp up from here. With that being said, the postseason tips off tonight with the play-in tournament, as the final playoff spots are still up for grabs. The Charlotte Hornets will host the Miami Heat in a win-or-go-home matchup before the Phoenix Suns and the Portland Trail Blazers go head-to-head for the 7th seed in the West. Then on Wednesday, we'll see the Magic take on the 76ers and the Clippers face the Warriors in LA. Now, let's take a look at the playoff bracket and see what each team has in store. Over in the East, the Knicks play against the Atlanta Hawks in a 3v6 seed matchup, while the Cavs take on the Toronto Raptors in a 4v5 seed matchup. Over in the West, we have the Nuggets take on the Timberwolves and the Lakers take on the Houston Rockets. The defending champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, are in a strong position as they won't have to see the Nuggets or the Spurs until the conference final, and instead are favored to play Houston in that second round matchup. For New York fans, all eyes are on the Knicks and Hawks series, a rematch of the 2021 first round, when Atlanta knocked New York out in 5 games. Now, 5 years later, both teams look different, with the Hawks moving on from the Trae Young era and the Knicks being led by the dynamic duo of Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. The Knicks took 2 out of the 3 games this season against the Hawks and entered the playoffs winning 5 out of their last 6 games. Game 1 will take place in MSG at 6 p.m. on Saturday. And should they exact revenge on Atlanta, a potential second round matchup against the Boston Celtics could be next. A rematch of last year's series, which New York won. Not to mention that a possible rematch of last year's first round matchup against Detroit could await them in the conference finals. That would be a lot of familiar faces in one playoff run. And over on the West, the marquee first round matchup features the Denver Nuggets and Minnesota Timberwolves in the team's third meeting in the last 4 years in the playoffs. The Nikola Jokic-led Nuggets enter the series on a 12-game winning streak and will be looking for revenge after their Game 7 loss to Minnesota 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards and the Wolves are aiming for a third straight trip to the conference finals, which would be a franchise record. So, will the Knicks reach their first NBA Finals in 27 years? Can they even win their first title since 1973? And how will the loaded Western Conference play out? I don't know the answer to any of those questions, but I'm just excited as you to find out. That's it for the sports segment this week. Back to you.
Some most prominent Hollywood voices are pushing back tonight on what could be the biggest studio deal in history. Our reporter Miles Reese is here in the studio with more.
That's right, Sam. There's a lot going on in the entertainment industry. Over 1,000 writers and actors and directors have opposed this new deal, and among them are Joaquin Phoenix, Ben Stiller, Mark Ruffalo, and Kristen Stewart, and they've all signed an open letter opposing Paramount's proposed acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery. The deal is worth $111 billion and would leave Hollywood with just 4 major film studios. The concern is that there will be fewer jobs across production, higher costs for audiences, and less diversity in the kinds of stories being told on screen. Actress and activist Jane Fonda, who organized the letter through her Committee for the First Amendment, called it, and I'm quoting, "one of the most destructive threats to free speech and creative expression in our history," end quote. The letter is also urging California Attorney General Rob Bonta and other state attorneys to investigate the block entirely.
And what is Paramount saying about all of this?
Yes, Sam. So Paramount is actually pushing back and saying that these opportunities, or this deal rather, would create more opportunities for actors and creators. Now, this deal does have some time to swallow over. It has to get official approval first. That's expected later on in the year, but until that, the fight is still not over.
Thank you, Miles. We'll keep following the story closely. Also coming from Southern California this weekend, we have Coachella. For more on that, we turn to Abraham Clemens with entertainment.
Music lovers, get ready. Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival officially kicked off last weekend, inviting thousands of eager fans to the California desert. Some of the biggest names in the music industry appeared last weekend, including major headliners such as Sabrina Carpenter, Justin Bieber, and Karol G, along with stars like Leve, Cat's Eye, Addison Rae, and dozens more. Coachella is about more than just the music, with influencers and celebrities turning the festival grounds into a show of the boldest, trend-setting looks that I am personally most excited to see. If you're not heading to the West Coast for the festival's final weekend, do not worry. Fans can catch the select performances through live streams on social media, bringing the festival experience straight to their homes. And honestly, sometimes the couch is the best seat in the house, especially with this year's ticket prices. Whether you're attending in person this year or watching from the comfort of your own home, one thing is for certain. The 2026 festival season has officially begun.
And now, our reporter Ashley Choi set out to see what our Stony Brook community's thoughts are on the controversy regarding Chavez Hall. Ashley?
Hi guys, I'm your reporter Ashley Choi reporting to you from Chavez Hall. During the month of March, Cesar Chavez, who was the late union laborist and political activist, has had several allegations of sexual abuse and misconduct of minors and women surface. He was known as one of the most influential figures in the Latino civil rights movement. As a result, Stony Brook University has initiated the renaming process for Chavez Hall, the dorm building named after him. The Committee on Renaming Chavez Hall will include representation from Faculty Senate, GSO, USG, ERM, the libraries, and 5 nominated members from Stony Brook University's faculty and students. The committee will meet 2 to 3 times during the duration of April to then present the final decision to the Stony Brook Council. If the decision to rename Chavez Hall is finalized, President Andrea Goldsmith will make an announcement during May, and the new finalized name will be decided throughout the duration of fall semester 2026. Hi, what's your name?
My name's Nicole.
Are there any influential figures that you have in your head about who Chavez Hall should be named after?
I feel like we should bring more awareness to our LGBT community and especially to Black trans women. So I believe that Chavez Hall should be renamed after Marsha P. Johnson, the woman who started the Stonewall riot.
Back to you at the desk.
What began as an outrage ended with a guarantee. Here in New York City, the Rainbow Pride flag will return permanently to the Stonewall National Monument in Greenwich Village. The Trump administration had the flag taken down back in February, but the government finally had to back down after months of controversy. Of course, the reversal didn't happen without a fight. Advocacy and historic groups took the administration to court, arguing that the removal of the rainbow flag illegally targeted the LGBTQ community. They also said it broke a federal policy that allows the National Park Service to fly outside flags at historic sites. Under the agreement, within a week, the Park Service will hang 3 flags on its flagpole at the monument. The Pride flag will be positioned below the U.S. flag in accordance with U.S. flag code and above the Park Service flag. That's all we have for you on this week's edition of Eyewitness News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sam Madling-Bayan.